Hey everyone, it's our debut episode today, and we're talking about reinventing remote video strategies. Welcome to Starting Points, a series of creative chats that brings together unique perspectives in video content creation. I'm Matt Nagy, Creative Director of Origin Story, a creative communications company based in Washington, D.C. I'm super excited to be here with all of you and to bring you our pilot episode. Joining me today are two awesome guests. I'm so happy to have them here. First up is Amy Burroughs. Amy is an award-winning writer, editor, and content marketing specialist. Her areas of expertise include technology, business, education, and healthcare. As a founder of Main Street Editorial, she provides freelance content services to companies, agencies, and organizations. Amy, glad to have you here.
Thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here.
That's great. I'm so glad you could be here. We've had a great time working together over the past couple of years, producing content. We've been to a lot of conferences together, which kind of reminds me, it seems like going to conferences is like a thing of the past, and we haven't done it in a while. So just kind of reminiscing the other day.
Same here.
So next up is my brother from another mother, one of Origin Story's strategic partners, producer, director, and video strategist, Matt Zappile. Matt is an award-winning creative producer. For over a decade, he's been the driving force behind many high-profile projects, including engaging content and visual communication strategies for brands like Men's Health, Apple, TED, the U.S. Postal Service, Lincoln Financial Group, and the Smithsonian. Matt, great to have you here.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. It should be
Matt,
fun.
I figured the two of us talk so much during the day that we might as well get some of our thoughts out here into the audience so they can learn something.
Yeah, we have some interesting thoughts, but it's funny because it seems like that even our regular conversations, we're like, we should record this as a podcast. So just to be fun to do this as a stream. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. We do talk way too much, so it's good to have you here on the first episode. So, as you might have guessed, we're recording this in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're here on lockdown and we're not quite sure how everything is going to shake out. And, as with any major disruption, there's going to be lots of changes going forward. So we're going to talk about how businesses and organizations can reinvent their video strategies. And specifically, I want to talk about content marketing managers, and how they can leverage this situation going forward, because I have a suspicion that remote video is going to play a huge role even when things return to quote unquote normal. So, Amy, I'm going to start with you. How has the pandemic forced change in remote communications?
Matt, I think one of the biggest changes is that it's forced companies to think differently about who their audiences are. And of course, that can be very broad, from your internal, external, business partners, colleagues, collaborators, supply chains, your customers and clients. And in the normal course of business, a lot of that communication might happen just naturally throughout the workday. It's kind of built into your business processes. But when so much is changing, you can't really count on that happening anymore or happening in the same way. So I think it's really making companies and communications managers think very thoughtfully and deliberately about who they need to be reaching out to, how to be really proactive about doing that. And as you said, a lot of these changes will probably continue past this. So it's kind of being able to think about very immediate communications, but also long-term and the kinds of things that you need to be talking about to your stakeholders.
That's great. That's really good insight. And Matt, we were talking before, and you had talked about some thoughts about having some heavy-handed messaging going on during the pandemic. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think what I'm seeing a lot of right now is I think it's a lot of people trying to they have good intentions. They want to go out and they want to have a really, they want to, make sure everyone knows that we're in this together and all these other things. And I see these messages, but at the same time, I feel like reminding people about what's going on shouldn't actually be the way that you go into any communication with any group. I mean, the reality for me is that, most of the things that I've been focusing on is trying to just get touch points out to people. And, we all understand that is, or you're kind of stating the obvious when we say things like that. So what I propose doing, and what I'm telling my clients is, hey, just remind them you're there. Don't, and maybe increase the frequency by, of your communications, and increase, some of those things, but try to, bring a sense of what you would normally be communicating, just maybe start doing it a little bit more often. And because, I'm getting messages from brands I love right now, and the ones that don't remind me about the virus tend to be the ones that make me feel a little bit happier, a little bit normal. And, yes, I love that remote, food service that I've been using. That's great. Things like that. So, yeah.
No, I think that's really, really good, because I know that, most successful brands, have to have empathy for their customers. So they have to understand, they have to be with them going through, things like this. So it's really important to, be able to convey that in your messaging, but not, like you say, be overly heavy-handed about it. And one other thing I'm going to add is that, this situation, and I think Amy touched on this a little bit, is that it's really forced people to embrace a lot of things that they've never had to embrace before. So the idea of telework and video chats, and even what we're talking about, this way we're communicating right now is new to a lot of people. And so just even adjusting to that in the span of a few weeks has been really hard for people. And now we've been in this, as we tape this, for about 4 or 5 weeks. And I think people are starting to adjust to this, new normalcy. And I think they're going to start to settle in and realize, oh, we're going to be in this for a while, so we need to change our communication strategy a little bit. So, that leads me to my next question is, why should content managers and marketers look at this situation as an opportunity to embrace video? Amy, I'm going to throw that one over to you.
Okay. As you said, we are being forced to think about basically everything in a new way, and that can be a really wonderful thing for any person in charge of creative messaging or content. This is really forces us to kind of look at that relationship, whether it's with customers or other partners, with fresh eyes. And you may have a company where your CEO or other important people in your company have never communicated directly with your customer base or with your clients or with your business partners. And this might have spurred that thought, like, hey, maybe we need to put our CEO on video and send out a very personal message. That's something that could be the right move under a lot of different circumstances, but this has just forced us to kind of think of different ideas and different ways to keep that channel open. So I think that's always very valuable. Yep.
Good. And Matt, what do you think about this kind of situation for embracing video?
So I'm kind of biased, but I think that companies should have been increasingly, especially in the past 10 years, embracing video, because it is the most, in my opinion, the most effective way to engage with an audience emotionally, empathetically, and really you can craft a message in like no other form of medium. And right now, video is, I think, even more important. The way we capture video and maybe the kinds of videos we do, that will change. That changes. I mean, I've been working with a bunch of clients right now, figuring out remote ways to get camera kits to people and try to increase the production value, and getting, tools out there that then we coach people into to try to get the production value up higher so they can engage. Right now that kind of separates people when they can bring a higher production value in. Also, another way you can bring production value, which then increases the overall value of the video, is think of other things. We come up with your message and go out and build pieces with the wide variety of stock B-roll that's out there. We've been also putting together a lot of motion graphics explainer videos. I know with Origin Story, we've been doing that a lot lately. You can get your message out there in a fun way that's still engaging. And, you got a bunch of people like me, who I work remotely anyway, who actually, for the most part, other than not being able to go out and actually do video shoots, we've been really busy. Probably almost as busy as we normally are because we worked remotely anyway. So we jumped right in and started doing animations and doing all kinds of things. And you don't have to do super like complicated things. You can also just do like a 15-second reminder that your restaurant delivers, or so a lot of these kind of very simple things could be really effective. And again, increasing, to my other point, increasing these touch points, but increasing touch points without reminding people that they're stuck in their homes and they can't go out because there's a scary virus out there.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me, video is all about connection. It's about engagement. Totally. And, so, I mean, it's well documented that, video has higher levels of engagements than a lot of other forms of marketing, including email, direct mail, other collateral, that if you have a video attached to some of your marketing communications, that there's more likelihood that there's going to be more click-through, there's going to be a higher level of engagement, things like that. And if you're looking at it from an internal communications perspective, that it's a great way to connect with your members, your employees, especially when you can't meet them in person. You can put a face to a name. It adds authenticity. And, we were talking about, how this situation provides opportunity, is that it's a chance to try out some new approaches, push forward, be proactive, and try things that maybe haven't, been, traditional in the past for your company. If you haven't done a lot of video, this may be the time to try new things, because you don't have the traditional ways of doing things because you have restrictions. And if there's anything we know about being creative, is that creativity is often spurs, or should say restrictions usually spur more creativity. So I think this is a good way to think about things as an opportunity. I'm going to push forward here to the next question that I've got for you guys. And so how is video positioned to support remote communications? Matt, I'm going to go back to you on this one.
Well, video is probably the primary video communication that we're all engaging with. There's all kinds of ways obvious ways that we've been all engaging with it, with different services, like Skype and Zoom and all that. I think that some of the challenges with it are just getting people to understand how to use it. This stuff has been around for a while now, but not really having to be the primary way that people communicate. So everything that you do in like an office job now becomes basically something that's happening through a video meeting. But that being said, it doesn't always have to be just like, hey, we're all going to jump on a Zoom or jump in a Skype call or or Microsoft Teams or something like that. It could also just be a really well-crafted message, even a very well-crafted one-way message from like a CEO, or from just to kind of get like a very clear message out to your teams. That goes a long way. And putting that out there, and then also placing it in a way that it gets out to everybody, either as your to your internal team or to as part of your marketing. But anyway, that's just some of the ways it's going to be important. Especially now, I think it's the most primary way that we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Amy, do you have any thoughts, to kind of piggyback on what Matt's saying? You're a marketer, you work with a lot of agencies and things like that. Any advice you want to give them?
Well, I definitely agree with everything that you both said about the fact that it's a very powerful medium. It really has the capacity to carry emotion and move people in a way that a lot of other tactics just do not. So I agree with that. The other thing I would add is, being mindful that video also has a very practical component when it comes to communication. I mean, I can send you an email or we can have a phone call, but all of the nonverbal components that go into communication are absent. It's very easy to misunderstand or not get the nuance of a message or not really convey something with the clarity that one would hope to. Video eliminates a lot of that. I can see and hear the person and know exactly what they're trying to communicate. That can be really effective and very powerful. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And I just over the past couple of weeks, I've been on more, video calls than I think I've been on in my entire life with a lot of clients. And you can really start to see the difference that people are longing for that connection, because like you said, you can't get that connection over an email or, a piece of collateral that's printed. You just can't. And, be able to see someone's facial reactions and the way they're into the topic or they're discussing the topic really makes the piece just that extra level of engagement. And some of the other things I was thinking about, is like, what techniques are available, with all this technology. So, we have people are getting used to the idea of online meetings. Everybody's got a webcam now. I don't think that, was as big a thing. I don't even think you can buy a webcam right now. There's such a demand for it. The ability to capture interviews remotely. We can't do interviews in person because of the lockdown, so we can capture them remotely. You can record a Zoom call. You can record a panel discussion. You can edit some great content. Just because you're not in the room with them doesn't mean you can't do that. You can send video messages. And you can also start to embrace other forms of video like animation, explainer videos, motion graphics, things that don't require in-person interaction or getting large groups of people together. And those are all alternatives to being able to embrace and keep connected with your audience. So, piggybacking on that, so Amy, what's the one thing you would tell content managers and marketers to do to boost their remote communications in this climate?
One strategy that I would suggest when you're making video that involves communication, showing a person as opposed to some of the other options that we've been talking about, would be take advantage of the fact that it is such a personal medium. That's one of the most powerful tools about video, so take advantage of that. This is obviously a very difficult time, and that kind of personal connection and authentic message is, I think, appreciated now more than ever. So use that and think about what you would really like to tell your audience or what you think they would want to hear from you at this time.
And Matt, what do you think?
If a content manager or a marketer came to me and said, what can we do? If they say to me, like, I really need just a way to keep engaging with, our audience or our customers and clients, I'd say, look, talk to, a marketing professional, a consultant, anyone, like people like me who sit there and come up with ideas for engaging in just these things, and just bounce some ideas off them. Have them come to you and say, give them your thoughts on how to continue to engage in this space. Look for people who do this all the time and ask them to kind of help you develop a strategy that's sustainable. Over the past few years, a lot of video tended to be just like one-off projects and one-off, little bites that like 4,000, people had to approve, and then you don't get it out the door. I'd say be a little, be more focused on what your message is, but be a little less precious about getting the content out there. So, try a bunch of things and then read the analytics and read the data on it, and then try some more. If you get caught up in like a 3-week approval cycle on one piece of communication, that's just, those are 3 weeks where you could have been sending out tons and tons and tons of different kinds of marketing messages and see what is actually resonating with the group. So what I'd say is trust a consultant or even your internal team to just come up with these ideas and then start trying things, start throwing things out there. Because you're really not going to know what's going to work until you've tried a bunch of things and then see that data over a period of a few weeks or months. This is a perfect time to do that. This is a perfect time to try things you haven't done before in video, and really just starting that process now while we're all kind of sitting in our homes. This is a great time to do it.
I think that's a great suggestion to just jump in. This is not the time to necessarily have that long, drawn out internal process. It is a great time to try things. But I also love that you said, Matt, measure, look at the data, see what's working. I still think even though it's a good time to try new things, we also still want to have that best practice of thinking about what's the goal for this piece of content? What are we trying to accomplish? Can we measure if we succeeded, and still do all of those best practices, but just perhaps without some of the cumbersome, long lead up that we might do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I think that there's a misconception out there that video has to be complicated, or that the process to go through has to, the video itself has to be complicated, or it has to have a lot of components to it, or people might look at it and say it's really daunting to do a video process and project, to go through that. And I don't think that's true, because I think you can start with doing something simple, like just having a conversation or a chat similar to what we're having. It doesn't necessarily have to be produced to this level. Just recording a Zoom call might be a way to get some stuff out, or just taking some video with your iPhone and recording a message for your employees. Just, it doesn't have to be super complicated, especially if you don't have a lot of time and a lot of resources to work with. It's better to try something. It's better to see what works. Like Matt said, look at the analytics. And if some strategy is not working, that doesn't mean you have to give up on it. That just means you have to look at the data and maybe adjust what you're doing. I know there's I see a lot of clients of mine that try one thing and then they say, well, it didn't work, and then they just abandon it altogether. Well, that's not really going to get you anything, because you're not looking at, the feedback and adjusting to it. So, I think people now are becoming much more accustomed to video, especially Zoom, all these other, whatever, Microsoft Teams, all the tools that are out there. So it's becoming second nature. So I think they're going to be able to leverage that more easily. Which kind of leads me into my final question here, which is, where do you think remote video is going? I'm going to leave this up to both of you. So which one of you wants to take it? Where do you think this is all going? And do you think it's kind of here to stay, or is it going to go away when we go back to the new normal? What do you think, Matt?
I don't think it's going away. If anything, this is just going to be something that we're all going to have to deal with more and more and more. And it's just going to be part of this for, at least 18 months. Even if we go back and, like, for example, I know Matt and I do a lot of shoots together. Yes, shoots may come back. They're going to be very different. There's going to be a lot more situations where, hey, you might have to do a Zoom call as a production, or do something like this. Or, like I said, I said earlier, where we are literally sending gear to places to people to actually, and talking them through how to use that camera to get better production quality. But I even think in the future, things will be limited. And we're going to just have to, roll with it and know that this is going to be part of, at least for the people who are providing these services, something that we're going to, be asked to and be adept in providing. And frankly, everyone who is a marketer or communicator just needs to be ready that this is going to be part of your plan moving forward.
And Amy, what do you think? Being the content specialist, what do you think? Where do you think remote video is going in the near future?
Well, I agree with Matt that this it has been, but to a greater extent, it will continue to be part of the menu of options that any content professional should be looking at when they're thinking of the best ways to get a message out there. Definitely some people have been exposed to using this in a new way, and hopefully we'll continue that and keep pushing creatively the ways that this is a great channel to communicate with people. We also might start seeing more two-way communication. Everyone has a phone, so every one of your audience members can also communicate back with you. So that could lead to maybe a lot of things that are too much, but it does have some potential to create a more robust kind of conversation with your customers or clients. So that could be interesting too. We'll see.
As I've been, providing, advice and guidance to a lot of these companies that I'm working with right now, we have been trying to tell them, hey, don't just do your video. Like we do like a recorded video or recorded message. Plan on doing a follow-up video. Take a lesson from the YouTubers on this one. They usually do like a main video, weekly or every few days. And then they do a live Q&A where they just take questions in. Like, they're kind of been ahead of the curve. A lot of the people on YouTube and the people on Twitch, look at a lot of the strategies they're using. They're effective now too, because they've been effective for years now. So keep looking at what they're doing and, try to continue to engage with that video. So yeah, you send out a great animation, or you send out a message from the CEO, and then have a Q&A that maybe you follow up with the CEO, and they ask some of the questions that came out of that message. Keep the engagement going. And again, it's not rocket science. It's something that's already been out there, but now it's much more important. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that all these options are going to, remain viable going forward. And, especially when, travel for in-person meetings aren't an option, I think remote video capture is going to be, an option going forward. It's going to be even more so because the technology to do so is only going to get better. And we're going to see it integrated with other, more produced forms of video. And, we touched on the virtual experience, like, for webinars and conferences and things like that. But, at this point, just because, there's a webinar or we have a virtual conference or something like that, doesn't mean that it just has to be a collection of people speaking. That doesn't mean that you might not also bring in produced video content as part of that virtual experience, whether it's a virtual tour or a video like you roll in as a product demo, or some type of brand experience or testimonials or things like that. Something that is would be traditionally produced for a conference, and shown on a big screen in front of 3,000 people. That doesn't mean you can't still produce those types of videos and just show them in a webinar or conference, online virtual conference format. So I think these technologies are just like anything that came before it, are going to complement everything. And I think once things return to some type of normal, that we're just going to have a lot more options that we have to deal with and that we can utilize, and it'll be a great tool for everyone. So with that, we've had some great insight in our chat today. Lots of great tips that I think everybody can take back to their organizations. Amy and Matt, I want to thank both of you for joining me today. You guys have been awesome. It's so good to have you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
You can learn more about Amy over at amyburroughs.com and on Twitter at amyburroughs1. And you can find Matt's work over at mattzappelle.com and at mmzappelle on Twitter. Thanks to everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.